Millennial family, it is Mia Sarno, the host, and I am excited to do fast and easy tips for peak performance without burnout today with Miss Holly Dowling. Hello, hello. She's
Hello.
author of Hollyism's Shine Your Light, and also has a really great podcast to just talk about celebrating yourself. But today she's going to give us a little special breakdown on how to really say that preventing that burnout in life, and how to live in that peak performance with all of the beautiful ways that we're super productive, maybe overly productive sometimes. And Holly, you kind of talk about this concept of drain out, which is similar to burnout, but tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on the show, Mia. I'm so excited to be here and with your audience and with everybody out there that's passionate about actually your show embodies what it means to be real in this world today, and what can we learn and tips and tricks and things that we can add to our toolkit, right, to have a more fulfilling life. So back to what you just asked me, I would say that one of the things that's really important to me is we use the word burnout a lot, and I get it. I think what happens though is there's something that's a precursor to burnout, because you're not really completely burned out. It's called drain out. Sounds like Drano, right? The product. And but the reality is you can get really drained out because you don't have mechanisms into place. You don't have boundaries in your life. You're not actually having a ritual every day to take care of yourself. So drain out, I think, is kind of the pre-warning sign that if we don't start getting your act together and help you get a more fulfilling life, and you're taking care of, I'll share with you later, the 4 quadrants that I use for myself, then we hit burnout. And usually when you hit burnout, kind of like you and I talked about, that's when we hit like pure exhaustion. People might end up, having massive, like hit the bed. They end up in the hospital. They end up quitting their jobs because they never had time to just recalibrate. You might love what you're doing, but the drain out got you burned out and you want nothing more to do with it. It's scary stuff.
It is. And that is something that taking care of our health is what's all about, and I shared a little bit of a story with you, Holly, about I was working full time. We had shifted a lot of our team and I was training like crazy. I was in grad school, completing papers, doing research, and then also tried to have a social life and maintain my relationships. And I did. It slowly drained me. And then at Christmas this last year, I got full blown pneumonia, and I'm like 27, like not that nobody can get pneumonia, but your body has to be in that situation where you're even, getting the inflammation. I was completely out of whack. And had I slept, for 3 solid days, 2 weeks before I got pneumonia, I would have prevented that drain out, right? Or I would have refilled my tank, things like that. So the strategies we're going to talk about today are refilling your tank, and saying, how do we be really strategic and have those points in time when we're really busy and we're really productive and we're in our peak performance to say, well, let's slow down. And so I love that you said that, it's not about work-life balance,
Right.
it's about work-life boundaries. And so tell me a little bit more about those boundaries.
Oh yeah, I get excited about this topic. This is something I'm really passionate about. And I know it's very vanilla and we're hearing about it everywhere we go today about work-life balance, work-life balance. So the story, Mia, is hilarious because probably a couple years ago, I was asked to come speak about that. Would I be willing to come speak at this event? And I graciously declined the client. And I said, no. And they were like, what? You don't want to come speak about that? And I said, no. Well, here's why. I said, I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life boundaries. And when you have boundaries, you can then create the optimal work-life integration. Because today more than ever, let's speak about millennials too, right? It's all generations, but there's more entrepreneurs in today's space than ever. And even going into the workplace, even with a job, you still have an entrepreneur spirit. So most people aren't picking jobs that they're just turning off and going home. It's integration at its best. So we got to have boundaries that then I think believe can maybe lead to balance. So what does that look like? It means, do you truly have rituals in place for yourself? Do you have those non-negotiables? Do you know what is important to you? And most people are ragged on the hamster wheel of life, hit and drain out, because they're just like this and we're exhausted. And this is how life is right now. And I got to just keep up. And we haven't taken the time to pause and reflect and put boundaries in. So boundaries, what could that mean for somebody like you? you're in a really great relationship. You don't want your work, Mia, to take over to where you don't get time. What is that time going to look like when you are having time to just cherish your significant other, right? Do you block it? Do you put it on the calendar? Are you taking time? Not everybody works out the same way. I'm big on meditation and prayer. So 7 minutes a day, I beg people, start taking some time of pure silence, alone time. We don't even know how to go walk or take a run without having a headset in, right? So I'm a big, and it's in my book. It's one of my favorite Hollyisms, but silence is nectar for the soul. And if you want to start creating boundaries for your life that then will excel in your performance and engagement, you have got to figure out how to have some time alone. We are human beings on this earth. We have all been given brains, spirits, all of that together. If we aren't honoring what's inside of us, we're so busy shoving stuff in, we don't have time to let the fountain come from within. So boundaries start by taking serious time of self-reflection and saying, what matters? What are my non-negotiables? I have strict non-negotiables, Mia. I hope everybody listening starts thinking about this. You know, when my kids were younger, my non-negotiables were, I'm always going to be home with them in the mornings. I'm not going to be on conference calls if I'm not traveling. And I refuse to travel and take gigs on Sundays because that was a day for me. Now my non-negotiables are my husband and I, Friday afternoons, if I'm in town, it's date day, not date night. Girlfriend, did you hear that? It's date day. Awesome. And I have it blocked on the calendar, right? Like people don't get to have that time. I only do 4 hours of calls a day. Nope, that's it. That's non-negotiable. There's nothing left of Holly, especially when I've been on the road. So I could list lots of non-negotiables, but like right now you're asking me and you're thinking, what is a non-negotiable for you? Or what is one you're thinking about right now as we're talking?
I personally believe there's a lot of non-negotiables for me in taking that time for physical activity. Because I know that I'm in a better peak performance state, and it doesn't have to be vigorous. You know, the body can do a lot with your metabolism and just making you feel, you know, that full sense of health and that grounded state where you're not letting the outside world run how your emotions are or anything like that. Even when it's like 25, 30 minutes of something outside of myself where I'm not thinking too much about how I'm performing. And I think that's a lot of the issue with, you know, not only my generation, but people in general who have a lot of different mindsets and they're hustling, right? That's what this whole show is about, is how are we hustling and how can we hustle better, longer, without burning out. And that's when I'm stopped thinking about, how am I hustling? Am I going to be hustling well today? Am I going to be doing this? Like, no, I can't only think myself into a circle for so long.
Right.
Getting myself out of that and knowing it's on my calendar is huge. And I think that's so true. Like a lot of people are like, oh, wow, I have my calendar for work and I have my calendar for this, especially if you have kids and things like that. You know where all their soccer practices and know all of that is, but scheduling in that, hey, like this is 30 minutes where like I'm hiding my phone from myself. And I'm just going to be a human being surrounded by nature or be a human being drinking water. Like those traditional simple things are huge. So those are non-negotiables for me, is taking time, you know, to really get into my body to feel that, because I end up being a better person when I talk to, you know, you and other people, just kind of letting my best self be in the forefront.
I love that. And there's something you said, and I'm just going to give you an applause because because the fact that, you know, at your age, you're figuring this out, right? Like, I don't want to wake up at later in life and be this, you know, not having these non-negotiables and not having the boundaries in place. And something you said that, and I know it's a part of the whole purpose of your show, and I don't want anybody to miss this, is I do believe we put so much emphasis on what's next and the expectations, and we're all driving fast and furious and making these goals. And I am a big believer in goals. I'm a big believer in visioning. What we aren't doing, which I would encourage, what you just said really provoked this. It's something I'm passionate about, but during that time alone, and I want everybody to start scheduling time alone, pause. Here's what I'd love for you to do, Mia, is reflect on where you've come. We don't take the time, and listen to my voice as I pause, as I'm saying this, to truly pause, relish, and celebrate. Look where you've come in the last 5 years. How about the last 10 years, the last 7 years, right? In that time of pause, and quiet time. How about getting out a notebook? And I do this at events. People actually end up in tears because we're so busy moving forward and hitting those goals. And I mean, my voice gets like this. We haven't taken the time to celebrate who we've become, where we've come from, and maybe you've overcome some adversity that you've just shoved under the carpet, right? Maybe you've hit some failure and had to pull yourself back up. We're so focused on what's next. Pausing, reflecting, and celebrating and honoring ourselves. Write it down. Take that time and write it down when you're having that time alone and go, wow, look at where I've come. That's your resilience, my friend. That's what's going to be the fuel to drive you forward. It's also what's made you a diamond and made you the beautiful person you are. So I'm big on that. And that was so perfect that you just opened that up for me. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I chose, interviewing you for a reason. You are literally amazing. And you're like who I want to be later in life. Like that's your goal.
Oh, darling, let's talk about that.
And I said that from the beginning, though. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating. You're sweating as well. But I'm sweating because I'm nervous to meet you. And so that's so beautiful. And I want you to quickly walk us through how to kind of explore our own non-negotiables. And then I know you have a goodie for our listeners and a gift too.
Oh, yes.
I want to be able to spend some time and share that. So talk to me about non-negotiables and how can our audience get really clear on making those for themselves.
Okay, two things. This is going to be so easy. You don't even have to write this down. Nobody has to write this down. Just listen. Perk your ears up and listen. Non-negotiables start with the power of yes and the power of no. What do you want to say yes to? And what are you really willing to be bold and fearless to say no to? Because if you really look at how you're spending your hours, your time, and your days, you are probably spending it with, here's where I'm going to bring it up, with what I call emotional vampires. Are you clear on how and who you're spending your time with? It can be very toxic or it can be very empowering. So I'm big on have non-negotiables start with who are you going to start spending more time with that lifts you up and inspires you? And who and how are you not going to spend your time on frivolous things, or are you overcommitting and you have a hard time saying no? Let me give you permission right now on one easy way to let go of the shame and guilt of saying no. Look at it like this. When you say yes to everybody because you're so afraid of saying no, and pardon my language, but they're only getting a half-ass version of you. There's nothing left of you. And you think you're doing the right thing. Actually, if you get a little selfish, you can be far more selfless. Start figuring out where you can say yes, because everyone wins and leverages the best of you, but you win the most. You, your families, your colleagues, your friends. So saying yes is actually liberating. So saying no, you're actually, don't feel guilty. You're not giving them the best anyway. So start saying no. And then the other piece to that is make a list 5-5-5. 5 things starting tomorrow, Mia, you want to start saying yes to that brings you more joy, things that you enjoy doing that are energizing, people you want to be with. What are 5 things you can start saying no to? Maybe that's being on a bunch of calls that you don't really need to be on. Like I said, I only do so many. I don't know. What else is a no? Make a list of 5, and then 5 things you're willing to do to add to your life to just make your life a little better. So that was easy, right? So
yeah.
Easy.
That's, 5 things that I know are, because by just doing the exercise, you're resonating in that gratitude for what you say yes to. And you're building that relationship that, like, when you do say yes, you're at your peak performance. You're at that extraordinary level where people get to see all of your personality. You're not holding back because you're tired or these small thoughts are in your head because you know you have this deadline or this anxiety or this about this. And you get to be fully present and have quality time with people in those yeses. But then in the no's, it's like, well, that was draining or burning me out anyways. That was draining or burning me out anyways. Or I probably shouldn't do 2 or 3 of these at the same time unless I'm doing a triathlon, because that's what I have to train for.
That's a good analogy. Good analogy.
Yeah. So that's 5. 5 is not a lot. And you don't even think about that your mindset is considering all those options in a day. Like some of ours is like, get 3 really major things done in a day. And
yes.
You're actually gonna, like, that's plenty. And that's not what we're taught. That's not what we're taught in school. Like I grew up here in California, and in Western schools, we had 7 subjects, like I did all my 7 subjects, all the homework for my 7 subjects. And then I played high school sports and club sports. So really it was like 10,
Oh my. Yeah.
I wasn't my best self at class the next day.
Right. But you can see how easily you can reflect back on that and go, wow, I was just burning candles at both ends. And maybe at that time, that was needed. And yet now you can reflect and go, this is the life, you create the life you want. I want everyone to hear this. Stop living a life of fitting in and start creating a life that fits you. Yes. Think about how profound that is, right? But it starts with non-negotiables. It starts with saying yes and saying no. So we could spend hours talking about this. You got me excited, right?
Yes. It's very powerful. And I want to leave on that note so people really hear you. Tell us a little bit more about what we can find in your podcast and book. And I know we're going to give a link out for a gift too.
Absolutely. And I guess I was waiting till this moment. So this is kind of fun that I get to do this. My show is called Celebration of You. And it's been around for a couple years. And Mia, it was truly a mission put on my heart because I meet amazing people around the world that they're not on the cover of People magazine. They're real people living extraordinary lives because either they've overcome adversity and, doing something with it. It's just amazing stories. So I love to celebrate people that I think are out there to make a difference in the world. It's on iTunes, iHeart, SoundCloud. Please go find it. And I'm going to invite you right now live with you to be a guest on my show. So you will be hearing from my team because I would love more than anything to celebrate you and what you're doing with your show and your passion to make a difference.
Holly, that's just very, very kind of you and generous. And I gladly accept. You're amazing.
Good. Well, I can't wait to have you. And I think we have a special surprise or a gift for your listeners too, don't we?
Yes. So in the link that we'll be sending out, you guys are going to get a discount to Holly's book, as well as some free podcast content. It won't be the one that we do because that one's just extraordinary and coming soon.
Yes.
But I'm sure that will eventually, see you guys and out there too. So Holly, thank you so much for everything and really showing us where we can draw some boundaries in our life so that we can say no and having the courage to say no, because we're not missing out when we say no, and being joyful and not having that anxiety and FOMO will actually make us better and more high in our performance, and no matter what we're doing in life. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And I love that you ended on FOMO. I never knew what that was till a couple years ago, Mia. And I was like, what is that? And somebody goes, oh, the fear of missing out. I go, I never had to worry about that. I was like, I never ever battled that, but I know a lot of people do. So thank you. It was a joy to be here with you. And please, everyone follow us. We're here to serve the world, and that's what's important. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, Driven Millennial Family, we will see you soon. And I hope you take away the 5 yeses, 5 nos, and 5 new beautiful things you want to do. Have a great day.